everyone. This is Yflex and welcome to another A Producer's Approach video. In this video, as you can see, we'll be breaking down and I'll be giving my own perspective and opinions on Deadmau5's new song, Hyperlandia. So the structure of how this video is going to work is I'm going to give an intro and my backstory on how long I've been listening to Deadmau5. Then we'll listen to the song and I'll give my opinions of the song and certain sounds I hear and certain techniques I think were used in the song. And then at the end of the song, I'll just talk about how much I like this song and the influence on how this song has had with me producing and just how I overall liked it. So to start in the intro section, this Deadmau5 song is a newer version of Deadmau5's music. It does remind me a lot of older style Deadmau5 song, and I've been listening to Deadmau5 for quite a while. He's not one of the first artists I started listening to in the EDM scene like a lot of other people. Monster Cat really was the first source where I heard a lot of EDM music. I actually found Monster Cat first before Deadmau5, Skrillex, David Guetta, Tiesto, and all them. I found out about them once I got into EDM after I found Monster Cat. So back in the day though, I did go back and listen to Deadmau5's older songs. So I do know like quite a few of his older songs. I didn't listen to them when they were first released, but I went back in his discography. I want to say when I was back in high school, and he was already at least like 4 or 5 years into producing. I believe Ghosts and Stuff had just come out maybe a year or two before I discovered Deadmau5. So he was already pretty big, but he really is like a lot bigger today. But I've listened to a lot of his songs like I Remember and Ghosts and Stuff and his different songs and different albums. Some of the older ones like There Might Be Coffee, Lost My Keys, just to name a few. And then I've still listened to his more recent music. And the song The Summer Never Dies is also really good. But something about this song currently just kind of sticks out. I don't know, the intro and the song is kind of stuck in my head. So I wanted to do a kind of breakdown my reaction video and my opinion video on this song. I'm pretty sure I'll do other Deadmau5 songs, but I just wanted to do this song first because it's currently stuck in my head. So as you see, it's Deadmau5's song Hyperlandia featuring Foster the People vocal mix. I think I've heard of Foster the People before. I don't know if it's in like an older pop song or in an EDM song. Their name sounds familiar, but again, this is actually a shorter Deadmau5 song. It's only 5 minutes and 49 seconds, which is quite surprising because like Strobe and some of his other songs I've listened to are like 11 minutes, which isn't bad, but you're really going through like a journey on an 11-minute song, where 5 minutes and 49 seconds is actually relatively shorter than a typical Deadmau5 song. So this is definitely a unique one. So we will start the song off from the very beginning. I really like that ARP in the beginning. I'm pretty sure it's Deadmau5, so he uses a lot of hardware synthesizers. So he goes to the actual physical synthesizer, like the actual piece of hardware, and then he actually just messes around with the different oscillators and finds this certain sound. I know he's done that in several different songs where he just records whatever he makes messing around with the hardware synthesizer, and whatever he records, he'll just take like a bit out of that and maybe loop it, process it, do something with that sound. But I wouldn't be surprised if this sound is a hardware synthesizer. He does use some software synthesizers like Serum and stuff like that, but I think most of his stuff, from what I know at least, he uses hardware stuff, since he's able to afford it, as well as he's really knowledgeable, so he knows what to do with a lot of those hardware synths. And since he started making music back when there weren't really software synths, he's probably pretty used to that as well. So I guarantee that's probably a hardware synth right there playing an ARP, which is really clean. And then I really like the Deadmau5 kind of mask that was just shown there, panning from left to right. That was really cool. So that's pretty interesting. The ARP is playing, has some reverb on it, so it widens the space, and then when that pad sound just comes in, there's no really transitionary sound. It just kind of comes in abruptly, which isn't bad. It's just a little bit different than what a lot of other producers do, me myself included. I like to throw in maybe a little sound to transition from the first sound into like an upcoming sound. But here, I mean, it works pretty well, because here he's building like the kind of soundscape for what this song is going to be in typical Deadmau5 fashion. Like, he kind of builds music in the very beginning with like really long intros, kind of more cinematic intros, I like to think about it, and almost in a sense where he doesn't even use percussion. He just basically has a bunch of maybe ARPs and a bunch of pads playing, and it just builds over time, so it progressively builds. So I mean, that's always really cool. Always appreciate that from Deadmau5. But that was just an interesting note to know that there's no transition sound that you hear in most EDM songs. Pretty cool. There's like a kind of that ooh, ah, that sound. To me, it sounds like a vocal chop, but there also is a bass sound right underneath it. So the bass sounds playing the exact same notes as the kind of vocal chop-ish kind of sound, or maybe vocal process lead. And the bass line is, or the bass sound at least, sounds like it's playing the exact same notes, just in a lower octave. You do notice it playing at the same time, which is really cool. There's now like 3 different instruments coming in, and they all have their good amount of space so far. So if anything, just watching this video, I feel like I'm going into space. I mean, that's definitely what I feel right now. So there was a little bit of a transition, but not really. I mean, that kind of vocal-ish synth sound kind of transitions in, but I mean, the vocals kind of just came in without like a reverse reverb, I guess, tail before the vocal, like as I've explained in certain other songs, like the Longest Road remix, where they had that kind of reversed reverb tail to kind of transition into the vocal. This song doesn't have it, and I don't think it really needs it. The vocal just comes in straight away right when it really needs to. So I mean, to each their own when producing, but this is just like a different aspect where a producer doesn't add the transition sounds, and how it could work. It's just it might not flow as good. Like if I were to do it, it might not flow as well. Whereas if Deadmau5 does it, like it flows really well and it makes sense. So just putting that out there. Cool. So just how the song's playing, it's pretty simple. The percussion's really nice. It's kind of a more chilled rhythm per se, and the sounds aren't too crazy, I guess you would say. There's not like a whole bunch of sounds kind of combined together. It sounds like a pretty kind of simple song in terms of synth selection. Like it sounds like Deadmau5 chose really few synths, but those synths really like fill the space, and like they do their job really well. Where in some terms, like for me, sometimes if I want to get like a certain sound, I have to like stack a bunch of synth sounds on top of each other just to achieve a certain sound. For this song, it just doesn't seem like at the moment there are too many sounds going on and playing at the same time. So that's pretty interesting to know, and how clean the mix is. I mean, man, it doesn't get cleaner than the Deadmau5 song, I'll say that much. So I like that like kind of pluckish sound on the bottom that you hear. I don't know how apparent it is, but it's kind of like a pluckish arp. It sounds really cool, very synthwave like. I've noticed Deadmau5's recent style and music is in the synthwave direction, which I can't complain. As much as I like his progressive house, his synthwave is really good too. I think he made the theme song, I guess you would call it, for Dr. Disrespect, and that song is like insane for a synthwave song. So I don't know much about Dr. Disrespect, but I know his theme song. So yeah, that song is really good. I know Deadmau5 made it for him, and man, that's really good synthwave. So I mean, whatever genre Deadmau5 commits to making, it's usually going to be good. I mean, I even know he makes more like deep tech house under the alias Autopilot, I believe. That's correct. But his more mainstream kind of progressive synthwave stuff, still really good too. So he has a lot of nice drum percussion transitions, kind of like what do you call that? Like a transition roll, kind of like a drum roll, almost like really nice transitions. And the ARP sound, I think from the beginning, that's the same ARP sound, just kind of looped over and over. If it's not the same sound, it's the same kind of ARP progression, which is pretty cool. I mean, it fits so well that like that's the main kind of driving sound. I actually did that with my song Airwalk that I made with my good buddy Paperwolf. The whole song, I think there's just a piano chord playing over and over, and in the drops you don't really hear it as much because I think I lowered the sounds and there's so many other sounds happening that I had to balance a lot of the other songs to be a little more apparent than that piano lead or that piano arp. But in my song Airwalk, that sound literally plays from the very beginning to the very end. Like it just plays the whole song. And it's pretty interesting because it gives it a nice flow and a nice consistency. So sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on the song. And here, Deadmau5's beginning ARP, either kind of notation or the same sound or a switch sound of that same ARP lead, it works as kind of what I think the driving force of the song, kind of just playing all the way through. So we'll keep playing the song now. So this is a cool part. So in the drop, it had the vocals, it had the percussion, it had that kind of harp lead, and then here it's the first time where there's kind of like a breath of fresh air, I want to say, like a measured gap of space, and then there was kind of a transitionary or introductory sound of with that synth into this part where it kind of takes out the vocals and kind of goes into like the second part of the so-called drop in this section, which is pretty cool because it's kind of like a more just sound driven, not really vocal driven, but more of like a sound driven part, at least in this section. So it's pretty cool, and the visuals are always top notch for a Deadmau5 song, always. So it's pretty cool in this section how it was playing out with kind of the arpish lead playing. And I think that's like the same sound, if not maybe a little bit different or a little bit altered sound from the very beginning harp sound. But I like how there was kind of like an alternate lead that I want to say plays at the same time. It's not really a calm response, but it's kind of a little nice kind of motif, almost like playing in the background, kind of at the end of the measures. And I want to say that bass sound that Deadmau5 has in the song, I don't know if you guys can truly hear that, but that bass sound is really nice. It's kind of contrasting to where like the top sound, the ARP sound, I don't know, to me it sounds like something you would hear in Minecraft. And then like that bass sound, it's not super distorted, but it's like a more aggressive sound. So I love the balance of like a really kind of smooth kind of non-aggressive sound playing like in the lead or in the pads, and then like a bass line that's a little more aggressive. Might have a little distortion, but it's not like to the point where it's a rock song or a dubstep song where it's like really like a lot of distortion, and it's very noticeable. Like this bass line or the bass sound in general, it's a little more aggressive, but it's not really super distorted. So I mean, I like that contrast kind of between like the light and the heaviness of the sounds, but overall the sounds are all super clean. I mean, man, the balance of the sounds too, with not too many sounds happening at once, is a really nice balance to fill that space. It's not really that easy to pick a few sounds and just make a song and kind of balance a song based off those few sounds. Sometimes, at least for me, like I find myself putting in more synths just to fill that space. But if you can just find a few sounds that can fill that space, your mix will come out cleaner, because then you don't have to balance so many different sounds and so many different frequencies at the same time. It can get a bit cumbersome sometimes when you're balancing like 3 synths that are in the same frequency range, and for them all to kind of blend together but also have its own distinct sound. It's a really tricky process. So what they say in producing, at least from what I heard, less is sometimes better. So in this case with this song, it seems like less is better is really the perfect technique. So just another added sound in that section that was cool. It was kind of like a kind of sound at the end of each measures. I think that was added as well. The best way I can describe that sound is kind of like the strobe sound. It reminds me of a sound that he used in Strobe. Yeah, that synth coming in just to kind of add a little bit of impact into the song was pretty nice. Kind of like that, gives it a little like accent almost like within the section, so it adds like a new element to the song where it's not just the same kind of loop instruments and percussion just going on and on and on. There's like new different elements being added. They're not like too crazy being added either, and they're not too noticeable, but it's just enough to keep the flow of the song. So I really just did like that little sound there, and yeah, that was just a really nice addition into there. And you can see now, I think there's the transition into this next part, and that whole part didn't have the vocal, and it still has the same kind of driving force, and it has the same feel within the song with the vocal there and without the vocal being there. And the vocal in itself, it sounds like is in a higher frequency range. Like the singer themselves either is pitched or they sang in such a higher frequency range that normally you need a sound to replace that when you kind of take the vocal out. But it just seemed like in this song there was enough maybe with that art playing to have a driving force to where there's a sound in that frequency range, and then just little added like motifs and little kind of higher pitched sounds being played every once in a while to kind of fill that space. Because at least to me, like I don't really see or I don't really hear like a big noticeable difference when the vocal is out of a song versus when it's in the song in terms of like the range of sound. Like it still flows really well and all the sounds still sound really good. So that's just my take on that section. So this section was pretty cool, actually. I liked how the kind of before the section started, kind of in the break in between both sections, there was a kind of lead in with the da 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 da. That was kind of nice. That's a more traditional lead into this section. And I noticed that the vocal synth chops in the background, like they were glitching. And I like that effect, and it sounded almost like the percussion instruments were going at a different rhythm. But I just like kind of that glitching sound from the kind of synth leadish sounds, vocal chopish sounds, I guess we'll call it that for now, playing along with the vocals. I think that kind of glitching kind of gave a different feel to the song. Kind of varied the song a little bit with a little bit like the chords and the vocal thing being kind of glitched out. So it was like, ooh, that's a nice effect. Like, ooh, that's cool. So I like that effect that he used right there in that section. And now I think pretty much it transitioned back into what the vocal part of this drop was, which I think is the first part of the beginning drop. I guess if you want to section this song out in 3 different drop sections, there's the first drop, the second drop, and the third. The first section of the drop had the vocals playing like it is here. The second part of the drop, or the second drop in general, was the part where the vocals cut out and it was just the synths playing with the cool visuals. And then this third drop is where it had kind of that glitching effect with the vocals coming back in. And then now it's just come coming back to this part of the drop in the third drop, but it's the same as the first original drop with the vocals, same kind of percussion pattern and synths in the sound and song. So So it's pretty interesting actually here in the outro. In the drop section, it's pretty cool. That vocal choppish synthly thing to me reminds me a lot of like a choir pad, almost like. I use a lot of choirs in my songs, as you guys have heard me say before, and that sounds a lot like a choir, but it's not really a choir because the way in which Deadmau5 utilizes sound, it sounds almost like a vocal chop. It's like if someone took someone's vocals and stretched it, but were able to like kind of chop it up. That's kind of what he utilized the sound as, which is really cool. I wish I knew how to do that myself. I would definitely try and do that. But in the section of the last part of the drop, I noticed that he included kind of the kind of sawish paddish sound that he included in that second drop, the kind of one shot kind of synth sound. I noticed that he included that in this last part of the drop, which I don't remember in the first drop actually having with the vocals. I remember just the kind of bass line, the arp, and the vocals playing. So I don't remember that sound playing, but that was the one thing I observed in the third drop and final drop. And this outro is really cool. I like how it ends with the same kind of arp sound, but with kind of the vocal synth sound just kind of playing out. And if you weren't transported to space like I felt like I was, then man, I don't know. Maybe listen to something else. I don't know. I'm just kidding, but no, I just felt like when I listened to this song, I'm transported into space. I mean, just looking at the screen right now, I feel like I'm looking at something from Star Wars. But basically, this is Hyperlandia by Deadmau5. I really like this song. I mean, the most recent releases, like the last 2 or 3 Deadmau5 releases, I've really liked. Channel 42 is good. Kind of a interesting, I guess, addition into Channel 41 that he collabed with Wolfgang Gartner, I believe. But I just feel like his last 3 or 4 songs, starting from like Channel 42, have really kind of felt like the older Deadmau5 style. The songs before it were pretty cool as well, but they just did give me that same kind of nostalgic Deadmau5 type feel from when I started to listen to his stuff back when I was in high school. So the last 3 or 4 songs I know have pretty much hit the mark on like hitting Deadmau5's kind of combining his older style with like newer techniques and a newer and cleaner sound. So overall, this is a great song. I can't say that I mean, I was head bobbing this whole time while listening to the song. So if you guys actually could have saw me, then you would have seen me just like head bobbing and just grooving and vibing to the song. So overall, really like this song, and I hope to do more breakdowns and reviews of Deadmau5's music in the future. And Deadmau5, so just kind of like a side note, Deadmau5 is definitely one of the artists I still want to see live. I don't want to see too many artists live because actually quite a few artists that I want to see live are actually in the rock music scene. There's only like a few EDM artists that I want to see, and Deadmau5 is definitely on that list. So that's a pretty good list to be on, at least for me to go see. I know recently there was a Cascade and Deadmau5 set, or it was actually like a Cascade show, but Deadmau5 showed up, and it was just like a old nostalgia trip kind of set. And man, I kind of wish I was at that set, but you know, maybe one day I'll see Deadmau5. But overall, that is my overall breakdown and perspective of Deadmau5's new song Hyperlandia. Again, by no means am I an expert, but I try and, you know, simplify things in terms of my review of what I think of the song. And again, if you guys have any suggestions or anything along those lines, please leave a comment. That'll really help me out and how I break down different things in the video. Like if I miss certain things, or if you guys notice things, or if I said things incorrectly, not according to how, you know, music theory is supposed to be labeled, then just let me know. And if you like this video, give this video a like. And if you like this type of content, feel free to subscribe. I'm going to try and do more of these as the best as I can, and hopefully you guys enjoy this. And I have a lot of fun doing this. This is just a fun side project for me, but it could be a more full-time thing, so who knows where this will take me. But so far I'm just having fun reviewing songs I love listening to. So thanks again for watching. Sorry for rambling so long, and have a good one, guys. Peace.